It's 1989, and Filipino geologist Michael de Guzman has just returned to Calgary from Indonesia with a seemingly impossible discovery. Deep within the Indonesian jungle lies an alleged deposit of 70 million ounces of gold. But not actually. In fact, there is no gold. But, as a wise man once said, lying is the fastest way to wealth. Guzman knows that if he were to create a Canadian public mining company based on his Indonesian discovery, he and his conspirators could become millionaires virtually overnight. And, well, there you have it. A Canadian mining giant was founded in March 1989. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Bre X. Bre X is now known as one of the biggest scandals in Canadian history. Bre X started as a public company trading at 30 cents per share on the Alberta Stock Exchange in 1993. The stock price climbed to $286 a share in 1996 based on falsified geological reports. When it was publicly announced that the Bre X executives were falsifying gold data, the stock crashed almost overnight. Today, what we're going to do is analyze the decline and eventual death of Bre X through Weitzel's model of organizational decline. More specifically, we are asking the question, how closely does the fall of Bre X relate to Weitzel's model of organizational decline?
Weitzel and Johnson's model of organization decline has 5 stages. Stage 1, blinded, when an organization fails to recognize internal and external problems that threaten long-term survival. Stage 2, inaction, when despite clear signs of deteriorating performance, top management fails to act. Stage 3, faulty action, when problems continue to multiply despite corrective action. Stage 4, crisis, when the only chance of recovery is major restructuring. And finally, Stage 5, when there's no longer a chance of recovery and organization decline is irreversible. As I mentioned before, Stage 1, blinded, is when an organization fails to recognize internal and external problems that threaten long-term survival. In this regard, not only did Bre X fail to recognize false claims of geologist Michael de Guzman, but also failed to recognize the extent of external problems such as the Indonesian government revoking their permits, the skepticism from investors and independent auditors that found inconsistencies in their gold, and public accusations that Bre X was not playing by the rules. In fact, they completely ignored these problems and tried to continue their scheming, leading straight into Stage 2.
So let's move on to Stage 2. Stage 2, as defined by Weitzel and Johnson's model of organizational decline, says that despite clear signals of deteriorating performance, top management fails to act. During this stage, problems may arise from management misinterpreting information, or even management decides to pursue goals that don't align with the original organization's goals. This was evident in 2 big acts during 1997. President of Bre X, David Walsh, sold his shares of the company right out of the blue. This shows a major reform and almost a throw-in-the-towel act by top management. The second act happened soon after the selling of Walsh's shares when a mysterious fire broke out in Bre X's main office. In the midst of the destroyed office was tampered core samples from the potential dig site. There was a lot of controversy around this event as to how the fire started or even the events leading up to it, however things were never answered. These samples were false core samples because they were sprinkled with gold to try and trick investors into thinking the dig site had a lot of potential and therefore a high return for them. Clear signals of potential company failure and decline was clear to management from the beginning, and as a result, these 2 events show the failure of top management to act and resolve. In this example, instead of resolving the problem, management decided to completely leave the problem alone and abandon the business. Next, we'll look at Stage 3.
Stage 3 of Weitzel and Johnson's model of organizational decline is known as faulty action. This third stage in the model is recognized to begin when managers fail to halt decline at the inaction stage and problems continue to multiply despite corrective action. In the case of Bre X, it seems like not even corrective action was taken, but more so denial of the trouble that was ahead from the early warning signs. By doing this, Bre X was unable to halt decline by ignoring issues, and they reached a joint venture with Bre X, Indonesia, and Freeport-McMoRan. Managers may have made the wrong decisions because of the conflict at the top of management team, as well as possibly fearing that a major reorganization may do more harm than good. It was obvious with Bre X that even with warning signs available and still having the time to halt decline, they feared they were too far into the venture, and the process in drilling goes ahead as planned.
The fourth stage of the model is the crisis stage. In the crisis stage, the only chance for a company to recover and get back on track is through major restructuring and organizational design, which will stop the decline and give companies a chance at survival. During this stage, stakeholders begin to cut ties or limit interactions with the organization. Top managers often start to leave the business due to conflict within the upper levels. Investors and suppliers tend to withdraw their support in the organization's activities due to higher risk. Signs of crisis at Bre X started to show when top executives de Guzman, Felderhoff, and Walsh began to sell small chunks of their holdings in the company worth approximately $100 million. This didn't raise many red flags for stakeholders, with many assuming that this was just normal activity for a situation such as this. However, the crisis stage really started for Bre X when the Indonesian government declared that they wanted to stake a claim in part of the gold reserves that Bre X had supposedly found on their land. They claimed that Bre X was not following the laws of Indonesia and rescinded Bre X's exploration permits, opening the deposit to another mining company of their choice and limiting Bre X's access to resources. Eventually, Bre X was left with only 45% control of the mine, with the other 55% being run by the Indonesian government called Freeport-McMoRan. Their stock price dipped dramatically, causing Bre X to lose approximately $510 million in one day. This shows stakeholders shifting their relationships with Bre X and investors withdrawing support. De Guzman also increased the gold found in core samples. These may have been attempts to salvage the company, however they proved to be futile. Since they were in the crisis stage, it was not enough to save Bre X. Freeport-McMoRan, as the new holder of the land at Busang, began to complete due diligence by drilling for their own core samples. Digging holes just feet away from those drilled by Bre X, Freeport-McMoRan did not find any gold. The company argued that de Guzman was making false claims. On his way to a meeting with them, de Guzman is said to have committed suicide by jumping out of the helicopter that was bringing him there. This serves as further evidence of top executives bailing on the organization. Once a company reaches the dissolution stage, decline is irreversible, and no business has a chance at recovery. In this stage, support from stakeholders, access to resources, reputation, and market participation decline until disappearance, prohibiting the company from fixing its shortcomings. There is nothing the company can do but declare bankruptcy. In Bre X's case, this is solidified with the release of a report by Freeport-McMoRan, stating that samples were fake and that in reality, no gold was found at Busang. This is soon after followed by further reports detailing how Bre X tampered with their core samples. Bre X's access to resources was cut off by the Indonesian government and Freeport-McMoRan. The impact on their reputation was irreversible, eliminating them from the market. Their stock price plummeted until shares became worthless, and disappointed investors started to sue the organization, indicating complete withdrawal of stakeholder and investor support. Bre X had no choice but to declare bankruptcy in 2002, completing the dissolution stage and the organization's decline.
In summary, Weitzel's model of organizational decline has 5 steps: blinded, inaction, faulty action, crisis, and dissolution. Bre X executives were blinded in 1996 when, even though issues were arising with the Indonesian government, the executives failed to act. According to Weitzel's model, Guzman and his comrades could have potentially reversed the issue by seeking good information. Stage 2, inaction, comes about when, despite clear signs of deteriorating performance, the organization fails to act. In the Bre X case, this culminated with the burning of their facilities.
Stage 3, faulty action, is when the organization reacts to a problem, but in the wrong way. For Bre X, signing a joint venture agreement with their future auditors was most definitely a faulty action. At the time of Stage 4, turnaround is almost inevitable, and the point of no return in Bre X's case was the revelation that the company's gold results were falsified. The share price plummeted, and investors lost millions. Oh, and Guzman committed suicide by jumping out of a helicopter. In Stage 5, dissolution, organizational turnaround is almost inevitable. Bre X officially died in 1997 and sent Canadian gold producers into a bear market. We originally asked the question, how closely does the fall of Bre X relate to Weitzel's model of organizational decline? Note that we asked how closely the two align. We may now conclude that the model is an accurate depiction of the Bre X case. However, the Bre X executives failed to enact the solutions as suggested by Weitzel.